Today, I'm going to talk about the next step of flexibility. Now, in the last video, if you remember what I talked about 3 types of flexibility that you need to incorporate and when to actually incorporate them. So let's go back through these and talk about these again. If you remember from the last video, recall, the 3 types of flexibility that I use the most are this. They're static, functional, and SMR, which stands for self-myofascial release. Now, let's go back to these, just recap these real quick. Static is a type of stretch that's used for a cool down. It's done after workout. And the only time that you apply a static stretch is it's designed to correct a tight muscle before a workout. That way we can elongate the muscle spindles and pull them back where they should be so that way they can contract and stretch the way they're supposed to. Functional is, if I add my L there, functional is designed to warm the body up, is designed to stretch the muscle out and warm the muscle on the opposite side up at the exact same time. And then self-myofascial release is a really good way to help bring the knots or the adhesions out of the muscle to help them recover to get the best results. So that way when you go and work out, you feel a lot better. And here is exactly why. In today's lesson, we're going to show you a simple formula to show you exactly how to figure out which muscles are tight so you know exactly which one to stretch. So before we get there, I'm going to talk about my diagnostic formula, and here's what it is. This is designed to do a couple things. One, it's designed to tell you exactly which muscles are tight and which ones are weak. So we're going to put tight versus the weak. Now, knowing this is very important because it brings us to the next 2 points. One thing will happen when you have a tight muscle and you have a weak muscle. One is you actually have what's called altered neuromuscular control. Sounds like a big word, but trust me, it's very easy to understand, and here's what it is. Altered neuromuscular, okay, so it's altered. Something's wrong with it, it's not right. Neuromuscular, the nervous system and the muscular system are not firing properly, they're altered somehow or another. And that's when you have a tight muscle or weak muscle. So when you do a squat, if your body can't squat properly because one muscle is too weak, it will shift you in a different position to use the muscles that are strong enough to support the squat. And that's called altered neuromuscular control, is what that is. The problem with that is it can lead to a lot of problems on the road. So the first one is altered neuromuscular control. And the second one is what's called altered joint mechanics. Okay, so for example, in the altered joint mechanics, the difference is not really that much. Your joint is altered because you have a faulty movement system with the neuromuscular part of it. So when you try to squat, it can't squat properly. It pushes you out of position because one muscle is too weak, one's too strong somewhere, and it falls into a wrong pattern of movement. The problem is your joints are what become compromised with this. So the joints will take all the impact, and that's why we end up with knee problems, ankle problems, shoulder problems, lower back problems. Think about all those areas are joints is what they are. And they're main joints where most injuries occur. You don't really have an issue where it's like the mid-quad or mid-hamstring. Once in a great while, but that's because the joint can't go no more. What happens is it might tear a muscle or something like that because it's too tight or there's something too weak somewhere, it can't support it. But the problem is 99% of people have joint problems, and that's where it comes from. So what happens is the diagnostic formula is going to tell you which muscles are weak and which ones are tight. It's also going to tell you which muscles are causing the altered neuromuscular control based on if they're tight or weak. And then it's going to tell you which joints are going to be affected the most because of the tight muscles and the weak muscles. So the diagnostic formula is pretty simple. Now in this case, I'm going to give you guys an example of doing a squat. Let's say, for example, you're doing a squat, and when you squat down, your feet do what's called pronate. They actually cave inward like this. Supination is where your feet will actually rotate outward. So for example, this is an example of pronation. When I squat, my feet will cave in like this. Now if you notice what's happening as I squat, my knees cave in too. See, it's an altered joint mechanic. The calves can't stretch, so it puts it to the next joint, above it or below it. In this case, there's only one joint around that ankle area, and that's a knee. So that forces the knees inward. Now if you watch, my knees are caving, so think about the joint here now as it's being pulled as my knee caves in. That's where most people tear a meniscus or ACL and stuff like that. So when you understand exactly what the muscles do and what they're responsible for, you can prevent tons and tons and tons of injuries just by knowing exactly how to work the muscles. So in this case, let's talk about the calf a little bit more, okay? If I squat and I see my feet pronate, that's a sign that, let's use my hand here for example, okay? So here's my foot, here's a leg coming up, we have the tib and fib, and what happens is if it pronates like this, it's using the muscle on the outside, and that's called the peroneal muscle. What it does, it pulls the foot inward, and it causes compensation. Now at the same time, the foot rotates, or this muscle on the outside here rotates this way, it lengthens. See, it's not firing the right sequence, the right rate. Now, kind of imagine this. If you're walking on concrete and you step in sand, all of a sudden your foot rotates. The neuromuscular part of it says to the brain, hey, my foot's rotated, it's supinated in. I need to fire this muscle on the outside here to bring the foot back up again so it's level. Now, if the body does not do it the right time, the right sequence, an injury occurs. You roll your ankle, you sprain it, and so on. In this case, we don't want that to happen at all. So we're going to learn how to recondition the muscle by stretching and work with the strengthening part of it to get the muscle fired properly. So in that case, if it supinates in, that's a good sign that this muscle's tight, this one needs to be stretched, and the muscle on the inside needs to be strengthened some more to help pull the foot back up again. Now, there's a couple things you need to understand with this, okay? That is just a fine little piece of the puzzle when it comes to that. For example, we have the actual ball, or the ball of the calf, which is called the gastrocnemius. We have the long muscle, which is called the soleus behind the calf. That one's the one that connects down by the Achilles tendon. Those come to play with it too. So for example, when most people squat, they should be able to flex at the ankle joint. So we should see a decreased range of motion right here. And most people can't, so what they do is when they squat, they'll actually go on their tippy toes to keep this angle at a 90 degree so it doesn't flex through. And that's another issue to occur. So we can have a couple issues in one area that's causing 99% of the problems that we have. So with the formula, it's very simple. We start looking from the feet and we work our way to the head. The reason why we do that is because if you have an issue in the ankle, it's going to trigger everything above to be thrown off. The knee joint becomes caved in when you do a squat, when you supinate. The hips turn, they rotate, your body rotates, the torso turns. So if I'm doing that squat and my feet cave in, my knees cave in, it can make me turn, especially if I have weakness on one side, and now my body's twisting, it's rotating. And that leads to lower back problems, some neck problems, a shoulder problem, and it all stems from working from the feet up. So the first thing we're going to do with stretching is we're going to start with the feet. We're going to do assessments. We're going to look at it and find out what's going on. Well, our goal is to remember, find out which muscles are tight and which ones are weak. This will allow us to stretch these muscles out and strengthen the weak ones. We want to prevent the altered neuromuscular control. We want proper neuromuscular control. We want the muscle to fire at the right sequence, the right rate, the right time. And then when that happens, your joints are not altered no more and you're pain-free, or you have very, very low pain if you've been experiencing this for a long time. It may take some time to improve, to feel better, but the key is you're reducing the pain, and that's what we're looking for. Stay tuned for the next video, because in the next video, I'm going to actually go through and show you more in depth of this calf exercise I just showed you where my knees cave in, my feet supinate, and I'm going to show you exactly how to stretch those muscles out